here are the ones. Oh, I think Mana just clicked the recording button. So, hello, everybody, and welcome for our access to ASL supports in rural and remote areas. And we'll get the parents' experiences. Hopefully, that'll help people. It's really exciting. I'm so happy to see some parents joining us who have experienced some challenges and because of their situation of where they're living, they're rural and remote. If they have more supports close, then it has different successes. So now we want to be able to have people who live in rural and remote areas to be successful as well. All right, so I know that it's hard sometimes when we are separated a lot by different um, boundaries and borders. And the rural people, of course, they still need supports, right? They not everybody lives in the big centers. And so tonight's webinar, we hope that the people who are joining can get an idea of what they can do with their deaf and hard of hearing children if they are in a rural or remote area. So next slide, please. We'll talk about these four things here. We'll talk about the interpreters. We have two interpreters tonight. And obviously, I think you see them. So they're using ASL in English, and I am signing in ASL, and I will be taking my time. I'm not going to be signing a million miles a minute so that the interpreters get left behind. But there's a little bit of a time lag, but we do give a little bit of a breath in between just to let the interpreters catch up. But we also take a little bit of a break between people who are speaking. And secondly, we're recording, and it's going to be something that we want to put on YouTube so other parents who couldn't make it tonight can watch the webinar later at a later date. Thirdly, we will have the panel discussion, three moms who are going to be talking about their experiences with their deaf or hard of hearing child. We have 5 questions that we will cover, and the panel will answer those 5 questions. And then we'll give the audience a chance. The audience can ask questions to the panelists and ask about their experiences, and that's what we'll cover. So that's what our agenda looks like for this evening. And so I'll let you know who I am. I'm the moderator, and I'm Amanda, and they've asked me to be part of this. I was born and raised in Thunder Bay, and my parents were hearing, and my parents learned sign language, and they depended a lot on the deaf community in Thunder Bay. There's a small deaf community, but they did support us and my parents, and it really helped me because they gave a lot of rich experiences to my family, and it was really great, and it was happy for me. So I'm part of the infant hearing program, the IHP, and I support the parents who have children with a hearing loss, and I do work mostly in Northern Ontario, and I do fly up to visit the families up in the north quite often. Next slide, please. So the panelists, I'd like to introduce 3 of the moms who are joining us this evening. We have Chelsea, and her last name is Sternjel Marcinet. And then we have Hillary McDowell. And thirdly, we have Trina Chisholm. Okay. Hi. Hi, Chelsea. Yes, this is Chelsea. Hi, from Chelsea. I don't know if this is the right time here. We're just going to fiddle with our technology for a second. Just please bear with us. Yeah, just hang tight for one more second if we could. We're not quite ready, but we're getting it. Okay, great. All right, so these are our 3 panelists, and we're going to hear from them and talk about their experiences. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. And I think we'll start with the first question, which is on the slide. It's on the PowerPoint. Maybe we could just show that PowerPoint, Mana, if you could, please. All right. We're gonna get through the technical bumps here. Sorry about that. Here we are. Right. Okay, question one. If you would, please tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and your family, please. Right. Who wants to start? Anybody want to?
I can go ahead. Sorry, Hillary. So my name is Chelsea Sergio Marcinet. I grew up in Thunder Bay, Ontario, where I live now with my husband Matthew and our 4 kids. We have 3 daughters, 1 son, and they range in age from 1 year to 12 years old. Our son and our youngest daughter are both deaf. Our son, who's almost 10, wears 2 cochlear implants, and our daughter, who's 1, she wears 2 hearing aids. So we've been signing with our son right from a few months old, and even after he got his cochlear implants, we continued on. So I kind of have 2 stories with 2 deaf kids, and I thought they would be very similar, but they're actually quite different.
Great, thank you so much. Next, who would like to go? Well, whoever. Okay, thank you, Hillary.
I can go. Hello, I'm Hillary. I have a son who is hearing and he's 8 year old. And my daughter Whitney is turning 5 at the end of the month. And she is deaf in both ears, has no cochlear implants. Um, we started signing with her later because we didn't find out she was deaf until she was around 1. She was born at the beginning of 2020 when COVID was a thing. So her hearing tests were overlooked, and she also had a lot of other health issues that took priority over her hearing. But yeah, we started signing with her when she was 1-ish, and then Amanda started coming to our home and helping us learn.
Right, thank you. Trina, please.
Hello, my name is Trina, and I am married with 3 children, a daughter that's 22, a son that is 16, and my youngest, who is deaf, is 12. He was born with moderate to severe with progressive hearing loss. And about 2017, he lost his right ear completely for hearing. We opt to do the cochlear implant. He is moderate, severe to profound in the other ear, and at some point that hearing will go. We started signing at about 3 months old as soon as we found out that he was had hearing loss, and we've been doing it ever since.
That's great, thank you so much. And next question, please. Next slide. Right, maybe now you could talk a little bit about your signing support at the beginning, when your child is early years, whenever they were diagnosed. What did that look like at the very beginning? Sure. Who
I'll
wants
go.
first?
So we had no support from the time that he was born to find out up until a few years ago. It was self-taught and videos and YouTubes. We did get in touch with BC Hearing, I think it is, with Diane Spears at the time. And she did very moderate signing with us. We only got to see her every 3 months, so it was very limited. Um, so it was very rough start to learning ASL and having that support. Um, Other than that, it's all self-taught up until a few years ago when we started getting some of the resources through places like yourselves and being more educated in where to get these resources. Mhm.
Good. Okay, thanks so much. Who wants to go? Hillary, Chelsea?
Um, the supports that we had I know that they would have been in place had we found out that Whitney was deaf sooner. But through the infant hearing program, Amanda was assigned to our family, and she started doing Zoom meetings and doing what we could because we couldn't meet in person. But she taught me a lot of signs. I didn't know any signs at all and didn't even think to learn it until she showed me. Yes, she just showed me like simple sentences, how to interact with her and have better communication throughout the day. And it was good also. The provincial school board sent a teacher when she was about 2 years old, and she also came to the house to visit and give little lessons. They flew up from Toronto, sorry. So I'm in Thunder Bay. They both flew up from Toronto and had a visit with Whitney every 2 weeks or so. So once all those things were in place, it became a lot easier for sure.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Chelsea.
So I'll start with our son, who's the oldest. I actually had a feeling he was about 3 days old only. We have an older daughter. So she came home, really quick story. She came home and she was having a complete typical 2-year-old meltdown. He was sleeping soundly in his crib and didn't stir, didn't acknowledge any of the sounds. So I thought something may have been going on. He was missed in the hospital actually for being screened with the infant hearing program, but was later screened and then diagnosed when he was 6 weeks old. The audiologist at the time here in Thunder Bay, who's since retired, was very knowledgeable. He connected us with a lot of people, including Amanda with silent voice. So she began seeing us, I think monthly at around 3 or 4 months old. We had a speech pathologist who also met with our son, even though he couldn't hear anything. And she met monthly. And then once he got his cochlear implants, she met with us weekly. Her name is Erin. She's amazing also. We attended deaf events. It was before COVID, so there were a lot of events. There were play groups, not a ton of families with little kids, but there were play groups. There were Christmas parties. So we tried to do as many interactions with deaf people that we could. I don't know why it took so long for the provincial school branch to get his referral or contact us, but he was about little over 3 when that happened. And we met 2 teachers. The second followed us and him right until he started school at about 4.5 years old. So she would also fly up from Kathy. She was wonderful. She would fly up from Toronto and meet with us in our home monthly. With our daughter, she was about 3 weeks old when we were told she had the genetic markers for hearing loss. This was before she even had an initial test or screening with the infant hearing program. And then at 5 weeks old, she had her first test and we were told that she had hearing loss. So everything sped up a little bit with her. We started meeting with Amanda through silent voice and speech pathologist and the provincial schools branch about 4 to 5 months. And appointments, home visits, sorry, are either every 2 weeks or every month in our home. We're still participating in deaf events locally. There aren't a ton, but we do. They're every month, which is great, and we participate as much as we can.
Thank you. Okay, next slide, please. Right, so now your experiences for early experiences when you had your supports from not just at the very first few months, but afterwards. What did those supports look like after the first initial diagnosis?
I guess I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Kindergarten grade 1 wasn't so bad. We had an EA that signed. Then come grade 1, our district, whereas all districts have the bump and bid system for their EAs. And from that point on, we've had almost next to nothing for support. 1 year we'll have EA that signs, the next year we don't. Next few months we do, maybe the next few months we don't. For the last 4 years, my son has had no support for signing, let alone an interpreter. January of last year, he was allowed 9 sessions with an interpreter, and that's all he was approved for. He's gone several years without an interpreter or an EA. We've had no complete support. I've gone to the media, I've gone to my MLA, because they didn't even register him in September for our home-based school, and they didn't even put him on the list for the resources. And they said to me that from their point of view, they were told that he was going to the deaf and hard of hearing school come September. That decision wasn't made until 2 days before school started when I drove him down there. They literally forced my hand to send my child 427 kilometers away from me to Burnaby to go to the deaf and hard of hearing school because they will not provide or give the resources. I get told that my funding or the funding for children with deaf and hard of hearing is not even enough to cover an EA cost, let alone an interpreter. We have suggested other alternatives with contracting out. They will not. So we've had literally no support for several years. My son has lost his identity. He's lost who he is. He has never passed a spelling test. He has never passed a math test. He has been discriminated because of reading. When he reads, he will pass his AR goal, but the reward is swimming or activities that he needs an interpreter, which then he cannot go because he does not have the resources to be rewarded for those activities. So the resources have not been there at all. So it's been a very long haul. But since he's been in the deaf and hard of hearing school since September, he has not failed a math test. He has not failed a spelling test, and he's increasing. But it's very difficult to be forced into do a decision that should have been a choice of wanting your child to go there, not thinking of it and then being forced into that decision, if that makes any sense. So the support is lacking here. It's rough for Vernon to have this. I know of 4 other kids in this system here in the school system that have no support either for EAs or interpreters, and it's a hit and miss.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for sharing. I know that's tough. What a journey. What a journey you've had. Wow. Hillary or Chelsea, who would like to go? Your turn, Chelsea.
Okay, so when our son was born, he was the very first person in both of our families that we could trace back that was ever deaf, that's been deaf. So when we met with Amanda, through Silent Voice, she was an absolute lifesaver. We had no idea where to start, we had no idea what anything looked like for us. We had an older daughter who was 2.5, and we kind of knew how things were going with her. We had no clue what was going to happen with our son. We were told you should pack up and move to Toronto, or you should send him away. And there was a lot of unknown. So Amanda coming in and being a constant support up until 3.5 years old was amazing. I don't know where we would have been really without her. The provincial schools teacher that we ended up connecting with at around 3, she was another one that was just unparalleled, support in our lives. She was one of those people that came into my life right when I needed her. And she taught me a lot about my role in my son's and now my daughter's life as deaf children. So that was fantastic. She was wonderful transitioning him into school. The principal at the time, again, he was phenomenal. There was nothing. I went to him, any question, concern, should we get this? What do you think about this? And he said yes to everything. So we were extremely, extremely lucky in that. And I think my husband and I got along with him on a personal level. So that I'm sure was a huge help. And our son really did benefit from that. Unfortunately, halfway through JK, COVID happened and the kids were sent home. Our son ended up spending the next year SK at home doing virtual school, which did not work out great. I was able to work from home, so that worked. I was able to support him. My husband was home, so we managed to get through. But since then, he has not had really any support in school. There's no one that signs to him regularly. The consistent question is, well, is he missing anything? And one of the questions that this teacher, her name is Kathy, told us is, you don't know what you don't know. And I keep saying that to teachers and everyone over and over again. He doesn't know what he's missing. So I can understand when other parents talk about how, they send their kid to school and just kind of hope for the best and hope your kid is being supported and being welcomed and, having a normal life with their peers. One significant difference that I have noticed from 2015 to 2023, 2024, when we, dove back into the infant hearing program, is that there's a lot more access for American Sign Language online. I don't know if there was anything back in 2015, 2016, but if there was, we were never told about it. Now there's a lot through the Bob Rumble Center for the Deaf, through the Oklahoma School for the Deaf, through the provincial board. And I take full advantage of that. We all do, just to get as much as we can. It's online, so it's not perfect. It's harder to learn online, but again, I get to do it in the comfort of my own home. So that is great. And after not having that option back in 2015, 2016, it's a great support that's out there.
Right, good point. Very good point. COVID changed a lot of things for sure. It forced us to use the internet. It forced us to go on Zoom, forced us to do everything virtually, but it did that. There was that silver lining, right? And it was good because then we could reach out to other people, and there's a lot of courses and lots of resources online. So that was a little bit of a silver lining there, but it was a big change. It did help, especially I noticed in my families in the north. Hillary, please, if you would.
Yeah, so I don't know anything different before the online things began, because that's how my journey with Whitney started, just doing Zoom meetings and looking at online resources and trying to learn what I could on my own. I found once I started meeting more people in the deaf community, that's where I was able to learn more and started feeling less overwhelmed or anxious about the whole situation, because, well, during COVID, you were alone anyways, but still, I had never even met a deaf person before in Thunder Bay or knew anything about ASL. So once I started meeting people, they really reassured me that Whitney's going to be fine as long as you advocate for her and try to get what she needs. But there are people, Amanda and other people in the school board, that have advocated for Whitney, and I haven't had to not try that hard, but I haven't had the same experience that Trina has had in BC at all, especially with her starting school. She just started in this September. She's in JK. It took a little while to find somebody who was able to sign with her all day long, but they did find an EA who has good signing skills, and they include the class. She's making friends. She's very happy. She's enjoying school a lot. She loves it. Yeah, I guess that's kind of it. Before she started school, yeah, we just had the play groups with the deaf community. It was just more about meeting the people and having a sense of community and making her feel like she was her own person and special and making friends. That's what I worried about the most. I wanted her to feel like a real girl.
Okay, thank you. Trina wanted to add a little comment. Please, go ahead, Trina.
I know how you feel, Hillary. It's wanting for them to be normal as we classify our children. They're normal to us, but to others, they're not. And we teach our children to keep things out of their ears. And here we are teaching our kids to put things in their ears, which are different, which leads to what I wanted to say. There was an IEP meeting once, and I was so frustrated with them telling me what my son needed when I know what my son needs. So I had gone in and I said, "Can I have all your glasses?" They're like, "Why?" And I said, "Well, just indulge me. Let's do an experiment." And they're like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, you'll get them back. I want to do an experiment." So we gathered up all these glasses, we stuck them on the table, and I said, "Now let's carry on." And they're like, "Well, we can't." And I said, "Well, why not?" They're like, "Well, we can't see the paper." I said, "Well, that's not my problem." I said, let's keep going." And we did this for 10 minutes. And I said, "Now look what you've just done to my son for the last year. You have deprived him of hearing and having that access to language. And you guys couldn't handle it for 10 minutes. And you expect my son to go without language for the whole day." I had more support with the kids in the class wanting to learn ASL and learning how to help my son. But I started that before my son was even ready for school. My older son came home one day and said, "Mom, I've run out of things to show and tell. Can I bring my baby brother to school and show him?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, what do you want to show?" He goes, "Well, I want to talk to him about how he's deaf and the things that we can do to help him when he comes to school." I said, "Sure, why not?" And at the time when I had Diane and Susie Fairweather, they came up, they helped me with it occasionally. And every year after that, until Nico hit school, we go in every 3 months and we would teach them, we would tell them, tennis balls on the chairs, things like that would help them. And then when school actually started for him, he already had support from his brother's friends, but he still didn't know who he was. And then when he started to get to know his friends were more supportive than anything else that he could have ever had through that whole thing. His friends accepted him for him, but they still struggled because he was different, because he had a cochlear, because he had a hearing aid, which to him he felt out of place because to him he wasn't normal. So trying to explain to a child that you are normal when he feels not normal is even bigger than trying to have him understand, well, if you're deaf and you're going deaf, then you're not going to be able to hear these things to enjoy them more. And that's a big struggle for these kids, especially for my son. So this, as much as we don't get the support, we had support emotionally from his friends. And that's a good start. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. I think a lot of parents, they're in the same boat. They have that same situation, very similar. It's very challenging. It's very hard to make the child feel included and part of the class, and that sense of belonging, and having the friends, and having that true self identity, positive self identity. Okay, I think we're yeah. Thank you. Question 4, how did you develop and implement your ASL strategies that worked for you and your child? Yeah, go ahead, Hillary. Thank you.
Because of Whitney's health problems earlier in life, I wasn't able to work, and I probably couldn't work anyways because there was nobody around that would take Whitney in a daycare situation. Which was fine. I enjoyed it a lot, hanging out with her for her before school years. But well, Amanda helped initially. Well, she still helps all the time, but she taught me just simple things like at bath time, just how to sign to look up when you have your hair shampooed, or do you want to play with the rubber duck? Like just such simple little things just improved that whole one experience. And then I just started including her in anything that I did, like we're cooking, like showing her the steps of what to do, and laundry, just little chores around the house, and just trying to find, like, I did not know grammar, and I still am not fluent in ASL at all, but it helped her understand and us to like click. And like then she started like little jokes would happen between us, and just we'd click more and connect, and yeah, it was just really special. And then other people would come and see that, and then they would know what to do when we're say at the playground. They'd be able to learn how to say, do you want to go swing, or do you want to go down the slide? Just started really simple, but yeah, just the inclusion kind of thing, it really helped her a lot, helped everybody, the whole family. Mm-hmm.
That's great. Yes. Oh, Chelsea. Yes. Thanks.
I really like learning. I'm a super keener. So if there's something new or especially unexpected in my life, my reaction is to try to take in as much information as I possibly can. So back in 2015, I read all the books I could possibly get my hands on. I, bought all the flashcards, read the books, bought the kids' books, puzzles, board games, posters. any documentaries, TV shows, movies I could watch, I did, just to learn as much as possible about deaf culture, about cochlear implants, about American Sign Language. So it became a part of my everyday life. We would include friends, extended family, classmates, like my daughter's, when she eventually started school, her classmates, the school, everybody into the learning experience. So it really became part of our everyday life. We had everything at home. We had placemats with words, and we had signs and pictures. So you couldn't get away from it. We just totally kind of embraced it entirely and made it a part of every single thing that we did, as well as attending deaf events and, of course, having the home visits regularly. So that was with our son. With our daughter, it's, again, a different experience because she has never known anything but a bilingual life. We still had all the materials. We just unboxed all the puzzles and the flashcards and the games and opened them all up again. And we would have, even if she wasn't deaf, but we did it right away. We signed to her, right a few hours after she was born. So in that way, she's really lucky. In a way, I'm really lucky because I'm not starting from scratch this time. I'm starting from 8, almost 9 years of experience. So instead of me stressing out about learning things, I'm able to spend more time teaching her. And of course, I'm nowhere near fluent in ASL. The grammar still is very confusing to me, and I'll forever, need to improve that skill. But at least I'm a little more calm with her because this is kind of this is the second time around.
Right. Thank you. Trina, please.
You know what? I don't remember the question.
Okay, sure, no problem. The question is,
Very picky with it, so you want to.
how have you used your ASL and implemented it at home? If you used your ASL and how you've implemented it after you acquired it.
Well, when I first found out, I did the same thing as Chelsea, bought everything you could possibly find. The library had some baby signing videos, not exactly what I wanted, but it was at least a start of knowing something. And then it was just learning the little signs and making up my own songs and like raindrops falling on your head and stuff in the bath, going on a car ride. I spent endless hours going around and finding bugs, snakes, worms, everything you can imagine, and took pictures. And then I signed it, showed them the picture. We went hunting for them. So it was kind of a family affair. So Dad would find the snake. I would stand about 50 feet away, zoom in as close as I could, take the picture, and showed the picture. And it was just a more interactive way for him to learn. And then I thought about the alphabet and thought, okay, well, I can do this. I got English letter A, then I got the ASL A, and then I had him pair them up to make a match game out of it. I got it included in his schoolwork at school. The teachers were really good with incorporating as much as ASL that I could find, that I could bring in, and they would incorporate in his letters and numbers, and we just started making games out of it. We would do nighttime drives to show him lights and Christmas and Halloween, and just tried to make it as much interactive as we possibly could. And then it got to that, to saying, okay, now show me what this is, instead of me showing him what it was. So it became where he had to find what it is. So we just really tried to incorporate a lot of game stuff that he would understand. Just one second, you have to come back. Because am I finished eating? I know I can. And then come. Sorry, I had to bring my son.
That's okay.
So I just try and incorporate as much as I could. And then with the other people, then we started with camp. We tried camp last year for the first time. He flourished. It was like he came out of a shell within 2 days from being this shy little boy to this kid that just went crazy. And he loved it. He thought he wasn't going to, and he absolutely loved it. So it was just a lot of the baby steps, but it was a lot of fight and will too, because you have an in speech pathologist going, he needs to wear them, he needs to wear them. And you have this audiologist going, well, you got to take your time because if you go too fast, he'll reject them. So as much as it became such a struggle with it that we had to take a step back and work at his pace as well instead of my pace, because I had to remember that the hearing world wasn't fully his. That's my world. That wasn't his world. So I had to jump more into his world and feel like what he is hearing and adapting to adapt those learning for us at home with the games that we did and the way we did things.
Oh, I love that. It seems the three of you mentioned a couple of really interesting things. It's in the everyday things. It's the immersion of their whole lives from every angle and every perspective, and so that leads to everything else. And it applies to what you did, not in a big picture sense, but in the baby steps, in the everyday stuff that you did. That was great, and I love that everybody had a little bit different perspective there. What, somebody had their hand up there? Did somebody want one last little comment? No? Oh, I thought I saw a hand. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to talk about how starting small, well, it was just so overwhelming and so full of anxiousness about trying to be fluent immediately, because I also had all the cards and read the books and tried to learn so quickly, but you can't learn it quickly at all. And it doesn't really matter because you can still have a really nice connection with your son or daughter without being fluent. Because I have lots of family members that know nothing and they are Whitney's favorite people ever and they have the best time. That's all.
Right, right. The connection, the bond is really great. That personal connection, I think, is key, right? Because that'll last a lifetime, for sure. That's awesome. It's good to have some people they connect with, for sure. All right, next slide, please. So number 5, do you as parents, in your bountiful experience, really, you have a lot of experience. Do you have any recommendations and suggestions that you want to share with us for families to access and enhance their ASL supports for the people who are in remote areas? Again, I don't know who we should start. Yeah, okay, go ahead, Chelsea.
So my struggle was never really with learning ASL or having access or finding access to ASL. The supports a little bit, but again, the deaf community here in Thunder Bay is really, really kind, and they do hold a lot of events. So those supports were there. Accessing ASL back in 2015 was a little bit harder than it is now, but it just took a little bit more work on my part and my husband's part. But my struggle, and will always be my struggle, is not knowing if I'm a good parent, how to be a good hearing parent to a deaf baby, now to a deaf baby and a deaf kid. like all the research I can do, all the books, all the webinars, all the movies will never provide me with an experience of being deaf. So, I struggle with knowing how to teach something to my kids that I will never know, I will never understand. So that will be my struggle for my entire life. So I don't think there's one solution really, even with having two deaf kids. Like I said, their stories are really different, and my experiences and what I've needed for them has been different. So I think there isn't one solution to help every family, navigate the situation that they're going through. So there has to be a different approach. Every deaf kid is deaf or hard of hearing kid is an individual. So their family is also individual. They all have their own needs, and those needs will evolve as the baby grows into a kid and then starts school, and then, forever on when they eventually move out and, go into the working world. So I don't know if there's one real concrete solution. I think, as I said, every family is probably different. So the supports may be different, whether it's more ASL classes, whether it's mentors, social workers, helping people that can help with the tech side of it, because I struggle with understanding now. I had cochlear implants down. Now I have to learn hearing aids, and they're different, and it's a lot. So whether it's parent groups, more deaf teachers, more hearing teachers that are fluent and have some form of deaf experience, the more people you ask, I think the more answers you'll get. I think the only real recommendation and suggestion I can give is to any organization is to ask the question, what do you need? And then listen, really, really listen for what parents are saying, what families are saying, and be able to hopefully help them, and then also be willing to adapt as, the needs change, as the family grows, the child grows, and everything just evolves.
Right, right. Okay. After what you said, every child and every family is different. I agree. You really have to see what they need to suit the child's need, and the parent as well. The parents know best for sure. So that's what I'm seeing. There's lots of resources, but the resources have to suit the needs of the family for sure. Trina or Hillary, who would like to go?
Um, I don't think there's necessarily recommendations. Like Chelsea said, every family is a little bit different, but what I can say for us is the more we advocate, the more we stand up and be the voice for our children, the more we will hopefully see those improvements and see these change, and fight for them in school, because their voices aren't heard in school. Their voices are being dismissed. Their human rights are being taken away to have the right to have that interpreter. They have a legal right to access language. And it even states that in the Ministry of Education policy and procedures, that they have a right to attend their home school. And as long as we're sticking together and speaking and advocating for our children and doing these meetings and hearing our voice, other parents hearing our voices, our stories, hopefully in time, things will change and things will be better. And as long as we're doing our part as a mom to be nurturing and loving and caring and understanding and teaching them that being different is okay, and that they have people out there that are just like them, that are just love them for them, and that they are really no different than any other child, then we're doing our part. And I think that as long as we keep doing that, I think we're doing what is right and what is necessary. So as for recommendation, I can't really say that there is. I just think that the more we speak, the more we advocate, the more we stand up for them and give them the voices that they deserve, the better it'll hopefully be, and the access can be there for the language and in the schools and in the world for them. And hopefully we can carve that path for them. And I think that's what my recommendation kind of, I guess, would be if I had to say a recommendation is just keep advocating and keep speaking out and keep learning what we can learn and keeping up to date with the things and familiarize ourselves with the knowledge that we have and what we can get from things like this and our resources that we can. And the lack of in our system, go talk to your MLA. That's what they're there for. They're there to help support. I'm in the process of trying to have the legislation change with my MLA to fight that. It's just, I've gone to social media quite a few times on global because, like I said, I've had to send my kid away, not by a free choice. Yes, it was a choice that I was thinking of, but it was a forced choice. So as long as we are trying to stand up and do those things for our children to make the right decisions and to advocate, I think we're doing what we can do for our children.
Yes. Yeah. Your comments about becoming the child's advocate, that's really important. That's a very important role for sure. And it is the parents' responsibility to talk about their needs and their identity is that's very important so that that shows and that will influence them. They'll see you do that. Hillary, did you want to add?
Sure. Advocating for your son or daughter is a struggle. Like you think about it all day long and becomes very stressful. It's a very hard job being a parent of a deaf child or somebody, a child who has any other kind of disability. Yeah, so my suggestion, it would be helpful being able to know more parents who also have children who are deaf. It feels pretty lonely in a remote community because I didn't know anybody for such a long time. And I talked to my friends about it, but they didn't really understand. And yeah, it's just like lonely sometimes. So it'd be nice to have other parents who have the same experience or a different experience, just to be able to chat about it and kind of wrap your head around the whole thing. And then you can be a better parent because you're not stressed out and thinking about all the things you do every single day. You can just kind of relax and realize things are going to be okay eventually.
Right. Parent groups, that is important. I do agree. Because the isolation sometimes is hard, right? Lots of parents have that same experience where they feel pretty alone and they don't have anybody to connect with. But that is good if there are people in other areas. I know that there's lots of parents who say they're willing to go somewhere to go and connect with some other parents. So the support is good and it's needed. All right. So the fifth question we just did. So Hillary, maybe we could show your video now. How about that?
Sure.
Is that okay?
When it's going to be, yes. Some of them are pretty silly.
Yeah, the tech person will just get that up there. You want to explain a little bit about it?
This one is just Philip, my son, and Whitney signing together, being silly, and they're calling each other bad boy and bad girl and just being total goofs the whole entire time. But it was kind of the first time that they were really signing, and I know it's Phil's much better at signing now, but that was one of the first things he learned how to say, bad girl. But Yeah, so that was just to show that
Teasing, the teasing, the big brother teasing little sister. He's doing his job, right?
yes, they have a good time. And this one was right when Whitney was starting to respond to the questions that I would ask. I think she's about 2 in this. She's a little peanut. And we're about to go to the mall for a French fry date. And I asked her if she wants to go shopping. And she says, yes, I do want to go shopping. And it was really one of the first times that she responded. And it was a good moment. It's hard to sign with the kid in the back seat of your van too. It's super difficult. They're like looking and trying not to crash.
To the comment of Hillary, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, this is Whitney's fourth birthday, and that's my niece and my nephew, and everybody learned how to sing happy birthday. And yeah, Whitney knew exactly what was going on. She knew what was going on her second birthday when everybody was singing it. Yeah. It's a good little party. She's having good time with her cousins. And learning how to blow is kind of a difficult task for deaf children. Well, it was difficult for Whitney, but it was hard for me to teach her how to do that. So that was the first year she conquered all the candles out.
Thank you for sharing the video. Thanks so much, right? She, she looks so proud. I could see her sense of identity. I could see the relationship she has with mom and big brother. You can see those connections. Right. Did somebody want to add? I think somebody, I'm not sure, interpreter missed.
Trina was going to say something.
I was just going to say about the signing in the back. So we were going to come back from Children's Hospital. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning. I pull into Cache Creek, ever so slight jerk of the car, ever so slightly. I didn't even notice it. I get pulled over. The officer goes, Ma'am, do you know you kind of jerked a little bit? I was like, I was signing to the deaf kid in the back seat. And he goes, you're the deaf kid? I said, do you want to talk to him? He goes, nope, have a good night. So it is very difficult to sign. But you do have your moments and you do have those fun experiences such as that.
Sure. Chelsea, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to add something. When you mentioned the IEP during school, they used to be called IEPs. They're IPRCs now here, at least in Thunder Bay, maybe all of Ontario. We just had my son's last week, and I shared this with Amanda, that for the first time, he's in grade 4. The first time I invited him, I actually told the special education teacher that he'll be joining us. After doing this every single year, I thought, why in the world are we, myself, my husband, the principal, the special ed teacher, his teacher, why are we just guessing what he needs, what he wants? Instead, we just brought him in. And it was the very first time they've ever had a child attend one of these meetings. And I know it wouldn't work for everyone, but it did work. It worked for him. It worked for us. And she said that going forward, it was such a good experience. She does want to include other kids in the future. So that's just something that parents can remember when their kids do start school, that, instead of guessing and trying to figure out what they might need or what they won't need, just ask them, and invite them along, as long as it's appropriate for your child and your family, of course.
And not only that, it does state in the Ministry of Education that your children are supposed to be involved in your IEP meetings at whatever age. It's supposed to be their learning and their needs. So also keep that in mind. It's their right to attend these meetings and be part of it. And you can be there. And if you don't feel that you are being heard, you can also have a child advocate in there as well for your child, so that when your child is feeling little off, they'll speak up so that your child can be heard. So I know that's our job, but sometimes, we're mom, we get a little mother bear and, get a little feisty where an advocate will get the point across for your son or daughter. So they're also allowed in there as well.
Yes, I think that is a good point about the child as that they can advocate for themselves. They can explain them what their needs are in school. That is important, and we can teach their kids, the child, how to advocate for themselves, not just in elementary, but as they get older, and even if they go to university, and also in the work world, they're going to have to be able to say what they need. For some children who need an interpreter, they can have an interpreter and a deaf interpreter. So the deaf interpreter could have be involved with that as well. And so just to make sure the child can understand it and in a good way, a clear way, and then the interpreter can sign from ASL and speak into English for them as well. So many children, sometimes it doesn't, the interpreters maybe miss when watching signs of deaf kids signing. And so a deaf interpreter can have a better ability to understand the child. And so sometimes it's a three-way, but everybody has different ways of doing it, but also the rights are there, and every child is different and every situation is different. But yes, include the children for sure in their IEPs, and not it won't just help them currently, but it'll help them for the rest of their lives. Anything else? Okay, I think Trina wanted to
I
say.
just also want to say too that as much as your child is deaf and hard of hearing or either or, um, even though they have an EA, they're entitled also to have that interpreter in class. It's not one or the other. They are allowed to have both in class. An EA gets paid already under minimum wage for what they do. They don't need to be doing the same thing as an interpreter for less the money. Interpreters are there to do exactly that. Stand there and interpret the class, the incidental learning, all of the stuff that the EA is not to worry about. They're there to help your son one-on-one if they miss anything. They're there that if they don't understand, that they can help. The EA is not there to interpret what the class is doing or what the teacher is saying. They are entitled for both, not one or the other. So also keep that in mind too when you look at an EA or an interpreter. They're entitled to both. Now, if you get it or not is a different story. You do have to fight, unfortunately, because they will tell you that there is no funding for it and they will not contract it out because of the cost. And they will remind you of that on a daily basis. But they are legally entitled to that.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's a very important point too, for sure. Okay. Yeah, next slide, please. All right, so now I see the time. We're at 10:10 Eastern time, but there's time for the audience to ask questions, or else if anybody had any last minute cue. I thought there was somebody else who had their hand up there. What happened? I'm not sure. Oh,
We're good?
oh,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead, Trina. Yeah.
I just wanted to also touch on what Monica was saying. It also works with our principal as well. Our principal needs to be checking in and making sure that our funding is there and that it's used adequately. Because I know that when I spoke to my principal last year, I said, hey, you know what? I don't know if I want to send him to the school for the deaf. Um, but I had to keep my options open. So it took some time to really think about as an option because they still weren't giving me an EA, an interpreter, or anything. So I get an email saying that Nico isn't enrolled in his homeschool because he was apparently attending the BCSD, and I hadn't even made a decision on if we were sending him there or not. And they didn't even talk to me. They didn't ask me. And I said, well, I've only started the process because it was 52 pages long just to get into this school to start the application. And then you had an interview to do on top of that in front of a panel board. And then when that goes on, it can take up to 2 weeks for the panel to say, yes, you can attend, or kind of no, you can't, to be accepted into this for a two-year program thing. And due to that, just starting the process in the event that we couldn't get the resources, because I fought right up until the day of to make sure that Nico could attend his homeschool with his friends in his school with the resources, and they kept fighting me. So when it came down to the very last second, I had to send him to BC SD for school because they didn't enroll him in class. They didn't enroll him in the homeschool. They didn't send in his paperwork for funding. They didn't send in his paperwork to have the speech pathologist. Nothing was set up for September of last year for him to go to school for grade 7. So the only choice I had was to send him to another school. So it also lies on our principal to be able to do their part in what our children need and not have them slip through the course and dip through the cracks, because that's happening daily. Yes, they have a lot of responsibilities of 300 and some odd students, but ultimately that's not our problem. Our problem is our children getting the needs that they are met. As I explained to our principal, the very first day of school, every child in that school is set up to succeed the very first day. They have everything that they need. My child doesn't. How is that equal? How is that equal to an equal opportunity as every other child does? It doesn't. Every year, there's no EA on the first day of school. There's no interpreter the first day of school. There's no resources. I have to take a week off of school, off of work, in order to be in his class to help him as much as I can. We could go until October, November, December before we'll even see an EA. And then it's a bump and bid for the next 3 months. So until we can get our principals as well as the bump and bid and all of this situated, I think we're still going to struggle because it's just an ongoing issue. But our government also has to see we're not getting the resources here in the rural area. It's just not there. And you can't expect an interpreter to come from Vancouver to a population of 40,000 for $30 an hour when they get paid $70 an hour. If you want to pay them less, offer an incentive. Give them something more to make it worth their while to come here. Same thing with an EA. An EA is a 30-something hour job. You're not going to get an EA that signs if you aren't going to pay the price. But our funding goes into a pool, all of it, all 10 or 12 kids of your school, the money goes into a pool, and it's handed down from category the most severe right down to the bottom. So by the time the deaf and hard of hearing come around, there is no funding. But when you ask for the financial statement of where that funding going, they won't give it to you. But you have a legal right to it, but they won't show it to you. How's that fair?
Right, right. Thank you for sharing. That is a very important discussion, definitely. I think this is a perfect topic for maybe our next webinar. And we could talk about the schools. And I know we're talking about early, the younger years, really. But maybe that's something we should consider for next time, because it seems like a lot of discussion we could talk about this for a while. Right, so we will have another webinar in February. It's called Executive Function, and Dr. is presenting that, and here, I'll show you that slide here. And she is a child of deaf adults, and she has a sibling. She's a sibling of a deaf person as well. So she's presenting next month on executive function. And executive function is, why are we going to be talking about that? That is something we want to talk about for next month, because if you want to learn more about it, please register. It'll be quite interesting. So I know just thinking time wise, I want to thank the moms. Thank you very much to the parents who were involved. I appreciate you being on the panel, and thank you so much for all of what you've done for your children from birth to age 5, right? And moving forward, it seems like the next something that we should consider is definitely school age kids for sure. But thank you all, and have a wonderful night, and good night to everybody. Okay.